Shall we read it together?
Hi, Amanda.
Hi.
It's nice to see you. Hi, Mandy.
Hi.
How's it going?
Great, how are you?
Good. Good. Yeah, I'd love to hear the poem. You want to read it?
Sure.
Okay.
Much madness is divinest sense to a discerning eye. Much sense, the starkest madness. 'Tis the majority in this, as all prevail. Assent, and you are sane. Demur, and you're straightaway dangerous, and handled with a chain. I think I misread that. It's just you're straightaway dangerous, no and. But there we go.
Yeah, that is that last and. I think it's another thing, and something happens. Like and. So and is like a conjunction, and saying so. Demure and you're handled with a chain. So there's like a result. It seems. I don't really know what that result is yet.
Well, it seems like there's a result. There's the comparison between the sanity and the madness is what first stands out to me.
Yeah, and I think it's important, like I looked at madness, and because it was sense, I realized it didn't mean so much being angry. If it's being compared to sense, then it means not being logical. So then I went to multiple meaning, and madness would mean, in my interpretation, crazy. Did you see that as well?
Right.
I don't know. I was wondering what you meant by sanity. So is that...
That's what that
Where
is
you
what
got
I
that
meant.
from?
I'm glad she said that
Uh-huh.
because I was thinking, and you are sane, and it was once I saw the word sane that I thought of madness in the sense of maybe a lack of sanity as opposed to anger, like you mentioned.
That's cool. I don't think I kind of saw that set up as these two opposites, where it kind of starts off with that word madness in that first line, and then comes down into, what is that, the sixth line, and so you've got sanity down in that. So that's a cool, those two. Do you think that there's a change in the tone then? So I guess when I think much madness, like when things are really crazy, that's a bad thing. But I don't know if that's the case for that first line. What did you think about the tone for like the opening of the poem?
Well, to me, I see her making an assertion of her belief, but she doesn't think that madness is a bad thing. She says it's divinest sense, and the use of the word divine, and I think that we hear that word a lot talking about religion, that divine would be kind of a holy thing, so that I see her tone, her attitude towards madness as being like a godsend, that you have and maybe an extra ability.
Did you look up that word?
Madness?
No, divinest?
Divinest. Yes, there are several different definitions of divinest. We have having the nature of or being a deity, of relating to, emanating from, or being the expression of a deity, and then we have the being in the service or worship of a deity, superhuman, godlike. So we keep having that godlike. And I do think, going off of what, I'm sorry, those are, and then there's actually more. Supremely good and beautiful. Extremely pleasant. And heavenly or perfect. So, going off of what Amanda said, it seems that no matter what, divinest does have a lot of positive connotations, whereas madness, I think just much madness has this sort of chaotic sound to it, but then divinest is this instant sort of change of tone even right there, I think.
Even within the line itself. Yeah. So if we're thinking about like an individual, what do you think that tone is established to say about an individual right at the beginning?
In just the first line?
Yeah, just that first line.
Just the first line? Well, I would say it's saying to an individual that people are maybe easily misjudged. When I see much madness as divinest sense, I can't help but think, of course, if we're talking madness and sanity, we're talking about the human brain, emotions. So if we're talking about people here, to me it seems to be saying that people that would be considered crazy, she's asserting that they're actually really not crazy. They have a lot of sense. What would the opposite of not crazy be? Sane? Sane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That they're very sane, but even more so maybe than normal people.
So is this like a
Yeah.
is this like a challenging? You think the tone is challenging? An idea?
I think the message challenges an idea.
Uh huh.
I don't know if the emotion
Okay.
in it does. I think maybe later it develops that
Okay.
in further lines. What do you think, Mandy?
Well, it is really interesting that one of the definitions for divine is heavenly and perfect. Because that idea of perfection sort of stands out to me. I think maybe we should look further to see where this madness and the divinest sense, if the tone changes or stays consistent with that challenging idea that you mentioned.
Yeah, I think it's interesting then when we go on to a discerning eye. Much sense, the starkest madness. So now it seems to be flipping those words and saying something. It seems like there's another point being made, asserted.
Well, that word discerning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that. I looked that one up, and that meant exhibiting keen insight and good judgment.
Well, then I think that somebody who exhibits keen insight and good judgment typically is someone we would think of as someone who has a lot of sense too, which is interesting.
Yep. And that's the echo in that third line, much sense. So to a discerning eye, someone who has good judgment, makes much sense. And then there's the opposite. Isn't that really cool, the way that line, that third line works? Much sense, and then dash, the starkest madness.
Yeah.
So it's like there's an opposite. So you've got these kind of, because it mirrors to me what you had said earlier about these two opposites being set up between madness and sanity, and what those two things kind of mean maybe for an individual person.
Now, when you look at that third line where it says much sense,
Yeah.
and then we have the M dash, and then the starkest madness, do you think those are two separate ideas? That she's saying to a discerning eye, madness is much sense, and that the second part of that line might go with the next idea?
You know what? I hear what you're saying. I would read that on that line. Much sense. And so the dash is kind of like introducing a definition of what's much sense.
So then if much
so it's
sense...
what's really smart, what's really perceptive, people seeing things, is you're stark, right? The word stark meaning everything's unclothed, it's exactly what it looks like. So it's kind of the starkest madness. So the much madness is divine in a sense. It's not only godlike and perfect, but it also makes the most sense to be starkly mad.
Oh, that's interesting. See, my reading of it was that she's sort of flipping the idea that there are two types of senses. The sense of the people that society considers mad.
Yeah.
And they have this divine truth and understanding. And I saw that she was saying to people who look closely, those who we say understand things are actually those who are the least sane. So I thought we were making a distinction between people who know the actual sense versus those who are regarded, like people think they have sense. And she's saying those are the people that you actually should see as mad.
I think that's a really neat reading, both ways. I do.
Yeah.
I see your
point. I can't decide which one
I see your point.
I'm with.
They actually both work, though.
Yeah, they have sort of the
in
same
different
tone.
directions. They have, but
Right.
they echo right into the same direction.
Right. They definitely don't contradict each other.
Yeah. That's really neat, because then you get down to, of course, that word majority. 'Tis the majority in this. So we've got all this, what's in the process of an individual is like being part of the majority, or or whether if you are part of the majority, is that being crazy? It's so neat the way this
That's
keeps
what I
getting
wonder.
flipped back
Me
and
too.
forth on itself. On what is insane. What is more crazy? Following the crowd? Or going against the crowd
And being
who's going to
considerate.
tell you that you're nuts?
It's an interesting paradox.
Isn't it?
And
Yeah,
I
it's
know
just like
that
a
was-
tension that emerges.
That was one of the words we saw earlier at the beginning of the unit, was paradox.
Oh, paradox?
And do we know what a paradox is?
Mm-hmm.
And so knowing that it's something that seems impossible but it's true, I really see that with
Mhm.
the idea of madness versus
Mhm.
sense. Did you think there was anything important about the words being capitalized too?
I was going to ask that next because I was looking at all the words. We've got sense, madness, majority, all. So
Mhm.
majority is almost
Mhm.
reinforced by
Mhm.
capitalizing all right
Mhm.
there.
You know, I didn't notice before now, yeah, majority and all, and they're actually right on top of each other. There's a repetition there that must be really important if she
Mhm.
felt the need to reiterate it, to
Yeah.
bring it up again.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I didn't notice until you pointed that out.
That's cool. I appreciate that too. That's a neat observation that you make. So I have a question then. So based on that, what do we handle the beginning of each line in the same way? Because I was starting to look at the pattern.
I know.
Right? I love that idea of seeing the pattern within the line. So you've got madness and I and sense and madness, majority, all, and then chain, internal.
Definitely chain.
Yeah, chain.
Mhm.
And then, because what I was wondering is about, like, what made me ask that question is the two words assent and demure,
And,
which are like two opposites.
But
and
yeah,
they
so
seem really important,
they do.
right?
So regardless of whether it was intentional there, which
Uh-huh.
I assume it, although the first line of every line, or the first word of every
Mhm.
line is capitalized, I still think they're important words regardless of whether the capitalization was.
You know, I was trying to look for like a pattern.
Mhm.
Are they capitalized in the next line when the line before ended with punctuation? But the one line we have without punctuation, the next word is still capitalized on the next
Mhm.
line.
Yeah.
But I don't think in is essential.
Right.
Mhm.
In isn't
Right.
a word that hits on our idea here, or it's a multiple meaning word. But I do agree, I think assent and demure are really important.
One of the
Yeah.
things that I remembered from the presentations is that one of the groups had mentioned that Emily Dickinson wrote the majority of her poems in her room by herself. And we also found out in those presentations that she was from a religious family. Her father was a minister, and so she read the Bible often. And I think between those two things, I know this might sound weird, but many proper nouns are capitalized in the Bible, and it was also very much it's a German thing. In the German language, all proper nouns are capitalized.
Do you
And
mean just nouns though? What do you mean by proper
Interesting.
nouns?
Proper nouns, like, abstract nouns, proper
Okay.
nouns. So
Because when I think of
they-
proper
like,
noun, I think like a name
it
of a
is.
place.
It's true. So those are capitalized, but so
Yeah.
are abstract nouns. German language,
So like madness.
right? Madness would have been capitalized
Like
in German
freedom,
language, and we know that
liberty.
there were a lot of Germans living in Amherst at the time, but also the Bible. The Bible does that too.
Yeah.
The concepts,
That's interesting too.
you know. So I don't know if that helps or
Well,
hinders.
that goes back to
You know?
the idea though of divine sense.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
that makes sense that she might be
Mhm.
linking this
But
to
isn't
somewhat.
that cool that
or
divinest
religion.
isn't capitalized? I mean, even
Well,
though
it
it's
makes
a
you wonder if she's
superlative.
going against it. Maybe sense with the capital, thought is more important for us than God.
I think that's a great idea.
Maybe she's.
And I'm sorry, did I?
No.
cut you off?
Sometimes I stop mid-sentence, and I'm okay with that.
I just love that she wrote her poetry alone in a room, and we were just talking about this idea of the majority, and like, you know, there's that thought to her thinking of her as like this individual writing
Mhm.
about madness.
Yeah.
See, that makes me think, though, that this could be sort of her backing up herself.
Hmm.
Like perhaps others would say she's mad, so she's refuting what others would say about her. And she's saying maybe like, what you think is crazy is really normal. And you guys are the crazy ones. And I could see her saying that from a place of trying to assert that she's not crazy for going away from society, that maybe they are for staying in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that they create this idea of sanity, almost.
Yeah, about what is sane and what is
Yeah.
insane.
Because if you think about it,
Mhm.
staying in your house isn't really insane. You're not doing anything that shows you don't understand
Mm-hmm.
the world,
Right.
or that you don't have good moral or ethical judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, if someone never left their house, I would probably think that was
Mm-hmm.
crazy.
To not go in with, assimilate yourself.
Well, these two words, assent and demur, I think kind of support what you're saying. Assent means to agree, to go along. And if you do that, or it says assent, and you are sane. So if you go along with people, then you're considered sane. But if demur, in other words, it's go against, show reluctance, then you're considered dangerous.
You know what's interesting about that? When I think demure,
Mm-hmm.
I think of people like passively not
Oh.
doing what you want, but
Mhm.
not aggressively.
Mhm.
Because it could have said, like, revolt when
That's
you're
a
good
dangerous.
point.
But
Yeah.
It's a
demure is
very-
really like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're demure, you just kind of hang back, I guess, in my
Mhm.
head. I
Mhm.
associate it that way. So it's not even like you go against them, but maybe you don't agree. Just the
Mhm.
act of not showing you're agreeing makes you dangerous. You don't even necessarily
Oh.
have to disagree.
Yeah. Actually,
Oh, that's a really good point.
the archaic meaning is hesitate. Hesitation.
So,
So you're not even.
So
even that,
even right, it's not even
yes.
like going against.
Right.
It's just if you
don't instantly buy in.
instantly agree.
I know she could have chosen
Oh, that's
like
pretty
revolt
wild.
or challenge or
Yeah.
yeah,
Rebel.
or yeah.
You know, that is a really awesome point. I really appreciate you saying that, because the notion about being handled with a chain, then, it's like to keep you in line. It's not to punish you, then, as it were.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
to keep you in line, to chain you so that you can't go out and be yourself. So you're forever like bound to do what you're supposed to do. And I half wonder if we do that a lot. That we're so nervous about what people might say that we really don't pipe up and say exactly what we are thinking.
I would say absolutely.
I definitely think so.
And it's interesting because then if I look at this, she would possibly consider me mad
Yeah.
for going along with society.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that discerning eye. So
So you see
if
that in a
you're
different way?
yeah, well, no, not maybe different, but
Uh-huh.
just in a
Yeah, deeper way.
yeah,
Yeah.
because it's almost like if people are just naturally inclined to do what everyone's doing because we assume that's sanity.
Mm-hmm.
I could be going out on a limb that's about to break. But do you think she used I as like maybe a little pat on her back? Because it sounds like I as in her. When you just said I was thinking, is she almost making an inside joke or comment to a discerning eye? Like I see it? Or am I reading too far into it? Because I think, well, she could have said to a discerning brain, or do you think I'm going too far?
No, so I think I hear you saying that I, as in a mnemonic, it sounds like the letter I,
Right.
the uppercase I.
Why choose the word
Hmm.
I? I wonder.
Well, she should. I feel like she does have that discerning eye, so that reference to herself. I don't think you're going too far. I don't think your limb has broken.
Like my extended metaphor?
Although you don't see the pronoun anywhere else.
No.
That's true.
You don't see any other than you.
Right.
You're right.
Yeah.
And you are saying you're
You.
straight away dangerous. It feels kind of like a warning to me.
Yeah, it's like that's cool. So, do you think then that the tone shifts from the beginning of kind of this, as we said, this positive, deified, warm feeling of the right thing, the moral thing almost, down to this warning tone at the bottom, you're handled with a chain. So watch out, Taylor, you're about to be roped in, chained.
Chain gang. Yeah, when I think of chain, I first picture like prisoners, because how they used to actually physically chain them to each other.
Yeah.
Probably in this time as well.